Raw chocolate, fresh from the cocoa bean, tastes like vinegar mixed with wet cardboard. It's gritty. It's sour. It smells faintly of cheese. If you handed a piece of it to a child expecting a Hershey bar, they would spit it out and possibly cry. And yet, somewhere between that bitter, acidic paste and the smooth bar in your kitchen drawer, something extraordinary happens. It takes 72 hours. It happens inside a machine almost nobody outside the industry has ever seen. And it was discovered by accident, in Switzerland, in 1879, by a chocolate maker who went home for the weekend and forgot to turn his mixer off. This is the story of conching, the single step that separates chocolate from cocoa sludge. What's actually happening inside that machine is a slow chemical execution. Volatile acids being driven off. Sugar particles being polished down to a size your tongue physically cannot detect. By the end, you'll understand why good Swiss chocolate costs what it costs, why cheap chocolate has that faint waxy aftertaste, and why a man named Rodolphe Lindt is the reason chocolate is a confection at all, and not a medicine. Most people know the broad outline. Cocoa beans are fermented, dried, roasted, and ground into a paste. Sugar is added. Bars are molded. That version isn't wrong. It's just missing 3 days of the process. The fermentation step is where the trouble starts. Workers split the pods, scoop out the beans and pulp together, and pile them into wooden boxes for 6 to 7 days. The temperature climbs to around 50 degrees Celsius. Acetic acid is produced, a lot of it. The same acid that's in vinegar. That acid soaks into the bean. Without fermentation, cocoa never develops the flavor precursors it needs. But at the end of it, the bean tastes like a salad dressing somebody had ruined. The beans get dried, shipped, roasted, cracked, and ground into cocoa mass. And at that point, in 1878, that's what chocolate was. A gritty, acidic paste that people tolerated. Then Rodolphe Lindt left a machine running over a weekend. The machine was called a conche, from the French word for shell, because the original trough looked like a conch. Lindt loaded it on a Friday, started the roller, and intended to shut it off after a few hours. He either forgot, or a worker did. When he came back on Monday, the machine had been running for 72 hours. What he found wasn't ruined. It was transformed. The paste had gone from gritty and sour to silky and sweet. It poured. It melted on the tongue. It tasted, for the first time in history, like what we now call chocolate. He kept the discovery quiet for 20 years. He sold his improved chocolate as chocolate fondant, melting chocolate, and refused to tell competitors how he made it. In 1899, he sold the technique to the Sprungli family for 1.5 million Swiss francs, with one condition: his name stays on the product. That's why, more than a century later, the bars in your supermarket still say Lindt. But that's not the strange part. The strange part is that for nearly 100 years, nobody in the industry could fully explain, in chemical terms, what was happening during those 72 hours. They knew it worked. They didn't know why. And here's where it gets unusual. Inside a working conche, 3 completely different things are happening simultaneously. The first is evaporation. The cocoa mass still contains the volatile acids from fermentation, acetic acid, short-chain fatty acids, a compound called isovaleric acid that smells genuinely unpleasant. These acids are trapped inside a thick, fatty paste. The conche works them out by holding the chocolate at between 50 and 80 degrees Celsius and constantly exposing fresh surface to the air. The agitator lifts and folds the chocolate every few seconds. The acids slowly boil off. The smell inside a conching room changes over the run. The first 8 hours smells sharp and sour. By hour 40, it smells like brownies. The second is moisture removal. Cocoa mass contains about 1.5% water. Even that much causes problems. Water and cocoa butter don't mix, and water makes sugar clump. The conche drives it down to under 0.5%. The third process is mechanical. Sugar crystals, when first added, are around 100 microns across. Your tongue can detect anything larger than 30 microns as grittiness. The conche grinds those particles down, against each other, against the walls, until they're between 15 and 20 microns. Below the threshold of perception. And simultaneously, the cocoa butter is being smeared as a microscopic coating around every single particle. Every sugar crystal. Every milk solid. Wrapped in fat so thin you'd need an electron microscope to see it. That coating is what gives chocolate its melt. 3 processes. Acid removal. Moisture removal. Particle coating. All running for 72 hours. Most people never notice this, but the margin for error in conching is brutal. Pull the chocolate too early and you get a bar that's sharp, acidic, sandy. If you've ever bitten into a cheap chocolate Easter bunny that felt slightly grainy on the tongue, with a sourness underneath, that's under-conch chocolate. Not contaminated. Not stale. Unfinished. Run it too long and you drive off the volatile compounds that give chocolate its character, the cherry notes, the earth, the complexity. Over-conch chocolate is flat. Sweet but uninteresting. Some industrial manufacturers do this deliberately. Flat, predictable chocolate is easier to use in mass production. Run it too hot, above 80 degrees Celsius for dark, above 60 for milk, and the milk solid scorch. A 10-ton batch of scorched chocolate is a six-figure loss, and there's no fixing it. The operators don't just set a timer and walk away. They taste the chocolate every few hours. A small sample is pulled, cooled, and evaluated. When the acid notes fade and the sweetness rounds out, the conch is shut off. Sometimes that's at 48 hours. Sometimes 96. The 72-hour figure is an average, not a rule. Right now, as you're listening to this, conches are running in factories on every continent except Antarctica. The machines run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. A batch can't be stopped and restarted. Once it starts, it finishes. Which means somewhere in the world, in every hour of every day, there is a steel tank full of warm chocolate being slowly folded by a metal paddle, with a tired operator pulling samples at 3 in the morning, deciding whether it's ready. The next time you let a square of chocolate melt on your tongue, that's what you're tasting. Not the bean. Not the sugar. The 3 days of patience in between.